It seems like every new release from Software follows some kind of routine, and a pretty good one. Every new game of theirs releases with critical acclaim by both fans and critics alike. It breaks in new numbers and attracts new fans to the series, and to top all of it, even wins few Game of the Year awards. And everyone moves on with their life, knowing that FromSoft has created yet another masterpiece. And the high heaven praise this game is getting struck me as odd and feels somewhat unwarranted. Like, really, what other new things are on offer here? Shallow, half-finished stealth mechanics, just like countless open world before it? A core gameplay style from 2016? Oh no, wait, it's from 2009. Remember crafting? Yeah, me neither. So the main draw this time is, you guessed it, the open world. And to be more precise, FromSoft's take on open world, which I personally find to be very safe and sees a lot of wasted potential here. So in this video, I'll be taking a look at the open world of Elden Ring and how it's presented here. But also bear in mind that I won't be talking about the recycled content and the poor balancing of the game. So without any further ado, let's jump right in. For starters, I want to talk about this beautifully hand-drawn map screen that you will find pieces of as you progress. But also as you progress, this whole map screen will be cluttered with the icons by the end. I mean, just look at it. How this map screen is any different from a typical open world game? Well, you might say that at least there aren't any map markers or checklists like other open world games. Technically, there aren't any map markers or checklists here, but they are actually present here. Let me explain. At first, you won't notice them, but as you play for a couple of hours, you start to understand the visual language of the game. What that means is that you'll know whenever you go to this place, you'll find the piece of map. Traveling to any minor Erdtree, you will always encounter this Erdtree avatar. These places are the ruins. Churches of America will always contain a rare item, mostly sacred tears. Going to places like these will always end up you in front of a copy-pasted dungeon, which contains bell bearing at the end of it. These are Everjail, where you fight the weaker versions of the bosses and the enemies that you might have already fought before. In other words, recycled content. At least golden seeds are not drawn on the map. So you see, this game is a lot more formulaic than it might first appear. And when something is predictable, there's a little room for surprises, and the whole point of exploration in an open world game is exploring. Not knowing what you will find, and let your curiosity lead your way. Other games in the genre are criticized for containing map markers, and for a good reason, because map markers just dilutes the whole wonder and the mystery of the world that you are in. And Elden Ring not having any map markers is not doing it any favors. And I want to ask you again, how is this any different from other, let's just say Ubisoft-esque open world game out there? And don't get me wrong, this game is absolutely beautiful, there is no doubt about it. And there are these jaw-dropping moments, like when you're traversing this area and suddenly out of nowhere this dragon crashes in front of you. And of course, who can forget this long elevator ride, which then reveals a whole new area underneath. This is a sight to behold. And Souls games were always expert at crafting these kind of moments, and it's nice to see Elden Ring carries this tradition. Personally, what I miss the most from these games are these uninterrupted, lengthy journeys. In Dark Souls 1, you inhabit this bleak, interconnected maze-like world where important NPCs and vendors are located in a specific part of the world. And on top of that, you don't have any fast travel from the start. So it means that there's a lot of backtracking here. And you have to plan ahead like a real adventurer on what will be the best possible route to navigate for the task at hand to minimize the risk of dying on the way. The argument against this is that these are time consuming and are likely to increase the downtime of the game. But there's an undeniable sense of immersion on offer here, which any game in the series hasn't seen since Dark Souls 1. And in my opinion, Elden Ring could have been the perfect game to bring this back. But unfortunately for me, this didn't happen. Instead, they doubled on the fast travel aspect. Literally. There's just so many sides of grace here. You won't go few minutes before finding another. And what makes it even worse is that you can fast travel from anywhere, anytime in the map. Except for when you are in the dungeons, of course. If you ask me, the simple thing they could have done is just to remove half of the total grace sites and only allow players to access fast travel when they are already resting at one. Like previous games in the series. And if you are concerned about the extensive downtime, then I must remind you about the stakes of America. which are scattered all over the map and are present near almost every boss or the mini-boss encounter in the world. Therefore, if you die to a tough enemy, you're able to respawn right back near the arena. And I think it could be a good compromise between the isolated adventure that I'm talking about and still being able to fast travel. These are my few gripes with the overall structure of the Lands Between. But I want to take this segment and talk about how I imagine the Elden Ring before the actual Elden Ring came to be. Just imagine, this game has no compass and no map screen, and you are totally oblivious about your current position. You have no idea what you will come across, what's behind those mountains, or in this forest. Your only guiding post in the world are these huge landmarks. It's a fantasy land, which means devs have full liberty to create structures as enormous and as weird as they want. The Earth Tree is a good example of this. It could have acted as a north direction in the compass, and all the narrative progression could take place near it or in the general direction of the tree, which is true to some extent even now in the game, and Sites of Grace can guide player like they already do in the game. Also, as I said, I don't want to get rid of fast travel entirely. I'm not that masochistic. Lands Between is a gigantic place, and finding a grave site should feel like a relief, as this is a safe place for the players in this hostile world. The grey site that you've already touched could be denoted with something like these huge beams of light, which can be seen from afar or maybe when the player is near one. I believe that Elden Ring should have been the game to experiment with the typical open world formula, because From Software has that reputation of making unconventional games, and fans will be more than happy to give them a second chance to any design choices that might seem bizarre at first. But as of right now, it is not as easy as just patching out the map from the game and calling it a day. No, we actually have to rearrange the whole geometry of the game, and possibly many other things to suit the style of what I'm raving about, which is not both practical and feasible at this point. But if you want a somewhat similar experience to what I just described, then I suggest you to play this game for a couple of hours. The only thing that you have to do is not pick up the map and see how different things feels around this time. You won't be able to anticipate what you will come across, and you'll be in the dark. Places like churches and ruins will be marked on the map after you have visited them. Hopefully now you understand when I said this game had potential, which wasn't fully realized. With all that said, Elden Ring is a game that I ultimately enjoy, but I don't love this game to any capacity. As a FromSoft first attempt at open world, I could cut them some slack, but it's no masterpiece, and mostly feels, and here it comes again, safe. And I find no joy in saying this, because FromSoft is a company that spawned an entire subgenre in the industry with their weird and experimental games at the time. But it's hard not to see the concessions that are being made to cater to the larger audience, and Elden Ring is not the first game in the series that this has happened to. The only difference this time is that these compromises are more apparent than ever. This game is no disaster by any means, but if they continue on this trajectory, their game will just become harder to even enjoy.